All right, well, thanks for coming, and thank you for joining the recording session. My name is Tony DeMarco, and I am in the process of starting up the Freeport Wood Bank with some other volunteers, some of whom are in the audience, Jordana Feely, along with folks that are running other wood banks in the area. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But I'm really excited to be here to share this new wood bank and sort of the concept of the wood banks in general, and then where we think we're going to be headed next. It truly is not just about wood, but about working as a community. And I think you'll see that as I go through my talk. Before I get started with sort of the why we do things, I just want to kind of lay the groundwork of what a wood bank does. We bring volunteers together and we process wood. We get logs, we turn them into firewood, and then we distribute them to people who need them. So with that as a background, I want to talk about the need, because I think it's an overlooked need by many. Poverty, we do know that poverty exists in Maine, right? I mean, if you look at the numbers, almost 10.5% of Mainers live below the federal poverty guideline. And just as sort of a matter of grounding everyone, the poverty level, and this is in 2018, was $1,703 a month, which is roughly $20,000 a year for a family of two, household of two. All right, so 10.4% of Mainers live below that federal poverty guideline. 4.8% live in what's considered deep poverty, which would be half of that. So you can see there's quite a bit of need in the state of Maine. What I think is really surprising is that it also exists right here in our community. We don't think about Freeport and the Freeport area as a community where there might be a need. But in fact, 24% of children in RSU 5 qualify for free or reduced cost lunches. It's a big number, 24%. 11.1% of families, or 16.1% of individuals in RSU 5 also live at or below the federal poverty level, including 18.9% who are 65 and older. So you can see where there's a need for assistance. Okay, that's just sort of talking about assistance. Now let's talk about heating, because when we talk about individuals and families and households in need, we tend to think about food insecurity. And food insecurity, as we know, is addressed through food pantries. That's one of the ways that we help. And people are familiar with food pantries. But the other thing we have to think about is heat. And when you think about the heat burden, and this is an analysis that was done in 2018 by the state. The heat burden is what is considered the cost, the percentage of cost relative to the annual income of a household, right? So for those individuals living at or below the poverty level, 24% of their annual income goes to heating. That's the heating burden. And so you can see for most families, if you move all the way to the right on that graph, it's somewhere in the 5% range. Okay, so significant disproportionate impact due to heating costs. So why do we focus on firewood? Right? Why do we think firewood is a good solution? We'll start with the fact that about half of Maine families, Maine households, actually use firewood for some or all of their heat, right? In fact, 10% of Mainers use it exclusively for their source of heat. It's also relatively economical. It's on par with other heating sources. So this is a graph that shows the expenditures, this is again 2018 data, but the expenditures per household for low-income households with using different heating sources, heating fuels. And you can see wood is right in there with fuel oil, which is probably the most commonly used source of heating fuel. So it's relatively economical. And of course, we live in Maine, so firewood is plentiful and it's renewable. And then, of course, 89% of Maine is forested. So we have access to wood. So I want to talk more about wood banks, how they operate, and where we think we can go with wood banks in the future. The concept of a wood bank is fairly straightforward. In fact, most people who start wood banks or volunteer at wood banks there's a common theme, right? They like to work with wood. They like to cut wood, chop it, stack it, see it stacked, and that's basically what we do, right? We gather volunteers to do this, and then we deliver the wood, which is, of course, the most gratifying part of all. But it is also an operation, right? It takes some work. It takes some planning. Sort of the part that isn't quite as much fun, but it's also the most, probably the most important, right? We manage inventory. If you think about the firewood as inventory, it has to be seasoned for 9 to 12 months. So we have to build up an inventory. We have to let it sit while we generate more, and then we can start to move it out and deliver it to households. We recruit volunteers. We also, because they're volunteers, we need to ensure their safety. So we have a safety coordinator. We train our volunteers. And we make sure they're only doing the work that they feel comfortable with, whether it's stacking or splitting wood. We also own and maintain equipment. So if you think about a couple of log splitters, maybe a trailer to deliver the wood, you think about chainsaws, there's quite a bit of work involved there. And also the value is upwards of, it could be up $10,000 or $20,000 worth of capital equipment. We have insurance. We have an advisory board. We have a budget. We have individuals who thankfully manage our budget and our finances. And we have a website. And so I would encourage you to check out our website. It's www.freeportwoodbank.org. And if you just Google Maine wood banks, you probably will see a few other wood banks pop up, other area wood banks pop up as well. And I'm going to get to that next. So as I said, Maine does have several wood banks, and I've got a list here of the wood banks, and they all run a little differently. I won't go into the details, but some will only have wood picked up. They don't have the facilities to deliver it. Others will deliver it. Some limit the amount of wood to a certain amount, say a quarter of a cord or a half a cord. Some will do a full cord. Some buy the logs, some get the logs donated, some sell the wood and generate cash, which is then donated. So there are a lot of different models for operating a wood bank. But there is one common theme here, and you probably notice from the illustration here that they generally are around the coast, right? And the coast of Maine is, well, it is the more populated part of Maine, but it's also where you see this confluence of wealth and need. And Freeport's a great example. Cumberland is another great example, right? Where there's a wood bank in North Yarmouth. And so really the challenge is, like, how do we expand this further, deeper into the state? We know there's a need. We know there's an abundance of wood. And certainly there's adequate skill to do the work. So, in fact, the latest study that was performed in this area looked at a cross-section of where was there need in the state and where is the highest concentration of wood burning. And 63 towns, communities were identified as candidates for wood banks. So it really is an opportunity for us to think about how do we expand this. So with that in mind, we came up with this concept of helping communities. The term wood bank in a box was actually coined by Tori Deedle-Hops, who we were speaking with, and we love it. So we adopted it, and we created a network. We call it the Maine Wood Bank. In fact, that's our 501c3. It's a nonprofit organization. We are all nonprofit. We're all volunteers. We have no staff, paid staff. But the point of this would be we kind of hang our shingle out, and if there's a community that's interested, they can approach us, and or we can approach them through different organizations within the community. And we can give them access to all the forms and the administrative things that, you know, most people who are starting wood banks are not that interested in doing. So we want to kind of lower that barrier to entry into the wood banks. We have insurance, so we have an agent who is willing to work with any wood bank that comes to them. We can provide hands-on training, and then, of course, they would become partners in our organization. We can help with fundraising, which is a really important part of maintaining and sustaining the wood bank. In fact, just last week, as we were rolling this out, I received a call from a gentleman in Charleston, which is where that orange dot is, somewhere in that area, near Dover Foxcroft, who's interested in starting a wood bank. They have land, they have wood, they have friends who are interested in participating in this, and they understand the need in the community. So and they came down to the wood bank on Saturday, and they're very excited to get started. So we may have our first new member in the network. It's very exciting, and making it public for the first time right here. Before I wrap this up, I just want to highlight that we have a community night at Maine Beer Company. I hope you'll join us on December 18th. Maine Beer Company offers these community nights on a regular basis, and what they do is they provide 20% of the food proceeds to the community, to the charitable organization that they're sponsoring that day. So tell your friends, come along. They have great food, great pizza, and I hope I'll see you there. I want to bring it back to this concept of community, because I really love, I love the title. Thank you, Megan. I think it really illustrates one important part of what we're doing, and that is we are pulling together different organizations in different parts of the community. We're pulling them together. We're working with Freeport Community Services. They provide the referrals to us. They tell us who to deliver the wood to. We don't get involved in eligibility. And that's a great thing for us to do, is to just be the delivery mechanism for wood, for heat. Maine Beer Company, great partner with this community night. The town of Freeport is offering land to us to use where we can process the wood. And then, of course, the community library inviting us tonight to speak. So with that, I just want to thank you again and see if there are any questions.
Is the Freeport Wood Bank set up at the transfer station?
It's not set up yet. It is, we have approval from the town council, and we are working through the sort of the administrative pieces of the agreement with the town manager and the town engineer, both of whom have been extremely supportive. And so it's sort of like the engine is racing and ready to go, but we haven't quite gotten there. We have, in fact, made I think 5 deliveries, and we've delivered 3.5 cords of wood, but it was all wood that we'd sort of collected from my yard and firewood that we've just had available. So we've gotten started as a wood bank, but we haven't created the space yet to bring in volunteers. But we're super excited because it's going to be at the transfer station, and it's it's a great spot to be where people are coming in every Saturday morning, right, to bring their recycling and their trash, and we're hoping that it'll generate a lot of interest and we'll get some volunteers. Yeah, thank you for that question.
A couple questions.
Megan.
Yes. Well, I guess I'm interested in the concrete or quotidian details of like, how does this work in real life? Like what's, like how many calls do you get? What's the volume you're dealing with? Like what can the community expect from the Freeport Wood Bank? Do we have like even a rough timeline of this, this winter?
Yeah, no, great question. So, wood takes 9 to 12 months to season, right? So there are some woods you can maybe get away with sooner. Maybe it's dry wood when you start. But realistically, we're going to, if we can start processing wood in the next few weeks, we'll have some wood for next winter. We'll be ready to deliver wood next winter. And I mentioned that we'd made 5 deliveries. Those are 5 deliveries with almost no public awareness of this channel. So I suspect we're going to expand the outreach, right? Right now we're talking about Freeport and Pownell. Certainly we will include Durham. I think we can get to Gray. I think we can get to New Gloucester. There's a limit to where you can go when you're delivering wood because it's a big truck. You sort of get to diminishing returns on the investment of driving around with a load of wood. But our goal is to have a standing inventory of somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or more cords. And that's a lot of wood, but I think we can do it. I think between logs that we're getting from the town, logs that we're getting from, when I say the town, I mean the town of Freeport, municipal services, but also people like folks in the audience who have called and asked if we're interested in the wood that they've accumulated in their yard and just had cut down. So we know people do tree work all the time. We also have these big storms that come and knock down trees, and we're ready to go collect that wood. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Yeah, and then another question I had is volunteer opportunities and what that looks like, all the different ways that people might contribute to this system.
Yeah, great question. So the most obvious ways that people can volunteer is to work at the wood bank, right? And you don't have to be able to operate a chainsaw, but we'd love it if you did, with the proper training and all the safety equipment. We'd love it if you could run a log splitter, but you don't have to. Almost everybody can stack wood. Almost everybody can load a trailer with wood, right? And when you bring people together like that, there's a special feeling that you get when you do that work, and that's kind of what we're hoping for. There are also administrative activities that need to happen. We do fundraising. There are people that really enjoy fundraising, and we really want them to be volunteering to help us out. Social media, right? That's an area where we would love to get some help. So there are 2 sides to this. There's the getting out in the field, and then there's the behind the scenes, sort of the onstage and behind and backstage work that both are really important, and we have opportunities for both of them. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Another question.
Tony, tell me a little bit about what type of wood does
great.
the wood bank accept? So like I've got a bunch of trees in my yard, blown down. Like what kind of wood can you use, and how would that process work to get you the wood?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for that. Well, so first, it has to be hardwood. And then there's this class called midwoods, right? But no softwood. So no pines, no firs. So any hardwood is, oaks, maples. Midwoods would include things like poplar and birch, but they're solid firewood species. Ash we also take, but you have to call your local arborist to find out if it can be transported because of the ash borer. That's really the only stipulation on that. How does it work? So if you go to the website, you will see there's contact information for donating wood. If you don't like forms, you can call us. Phone number's on the website as well. And if you can deliver it, we'll take it. If you can't deliver it, we can likely come and get it. We would come to your property with a dump trailer, and we would bring volunteers and we would load it up. We might have to saw it there on site, but we can do most of that work ourselves. Yeah. And then we'd bring it back to the wood bank and process it. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, so again, that web address was freeportwoodbank.org. And the town of Freeport has a new communications director as well, so I expect some more information from the town will be forthcoming.
Very good.
We're really excited to see what happens.
Thank you. Thanks again, everyone.